All right, so back to the story. Basically, yeah. So Katie ended up having the abortion, but like right before she had the abortion, I remember I was moving back to right wing, and like I said, I think that a part of it was my left wing communist ways kind of backfired on me because I was for abortion because I was like, yeah, people who are against abortion are just white supremacists. They just want to maintain their race but this is a thing too. My grandpa kind of confused me, like I said, like because I told him how I became kind of a white supremacist for a little bit in 2014, and my grandpa was like, well, that's not the flow. But the flow is transcending the ego, transcending the self. But I was thinking like, okay, well, that's not the flow. Then then race mixing is the flow. So I was thinking, okay, well then race mixing is the flow. Being for race mixing, being for open borders and stuff. But now it turns out I know that that's not the flow either, because that could be a calculation and that could be ego based. Like I saw myself as Jewish and I wanted race mixing. So now I know that the flow is, that there's no formula for the flow. And if you're in the flow, apparently my grandpa would say, you're not even really aware of what you're doing. And it's like a higher force or a higher inspiration guiding you. It's not instincts, but it's like a higher intuition or higher inspiration or whatever. And it's based off of like synergy and revelation. And so, and I do think it's interesting because even like people say that the word prophet in Hebrew means flower, but so now I kind of understand that, I guess the flow isn't necessarily for race mixing or against it. But, my grandpa was like, well, white supremacy is not the flow. I'm thinking, well, but, my grandpa also said, like, well, and I asked him, well, what about, like, the black supremacists? And my grandpa was like, well, it's closer to the flow because, like, the black people, they were disparaged throughout history. So when they think of themselves as superior, at least it's better than thinking of themselves as inferior. And that's, being superior, you can raise your level of aliveness to where you could lose yourself easier. So, but I was like, okay, well, then, black pride, yeah, So my grandpa just confused me. I'm like, okay, what is the flow? So is the flow for race mixing? Is it against it? I didn't understand. But again, my grandpa wasn't teaching me at this point. He stopped teaching me because we got in an argument about my mom and dad. He's like, I don't want to teach you anymore, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just confused at this. I was confused at this point in, I would say it was like 2022. And that was when Katie had the abortion. And like I said, though, but when it happened, like, I was, right before it happened, I met up with some of my hippie friends, like my black friend who was Haitian, and, and they was friends with these Jewish people who are hippies, like these Jewish girls, and these Jewish girls were dating black guys. And I started texting Katie, like, hey, Katie, because, my friend was like, hey, I'll talk to Katie and I'll see if I can, talk to her, see what's going on. Maybe I can help her to, see what's going on with the baby and stuff. Because I told him about what was happening. But I didn't want him to talk to her because I was afraid. You see, my only friends were like hippie leftists. And I was like, dude, I don't want a hippie leftist to talk to Katie because Katie might fuck them, So I was like, my being a leftist ended up backfiring on me in that sense. So I started texting Katie like, Katie, and if my hippie friends talk to you, like, don't listen to them, stay away from them. I don't want you doing drugs. Because I knew that she went to that hippie party. And I was like, I want you to stay away from those people because those people are not good influences. I don't want them around Katie when she's pregnant. I don't want them around her ever because she might be having my baby. And I don't want her around these drug using, quote unquote, low life people, communists, leftists, anti, all that type of stuff, for race mixing, anti-white, anti-society, hippie, leftist type of thing. I was like, no, I don't want Katie around that. And that's what destroyed me so much when she was lied about going to that part, lied to me and wanted to hang out with Sylvie, who was a hippie leftist Jewish girl. And when I saw the pictures of her at that kickback party that she said it was just a kickback, but it was actually a party. And I knew the people at the party. They're all leftist communists. And I was like, I don't want Katie around those drug using, anti-society, polyamorous, sick people. Like, Katie's pregnant with my baby. I don't want her around polyamorous, sick people, But my grandpa would say, don't judge because, that being rigid is not necessarily the flow, but also being promiscuous is not necessarily the flow, but there's no formula for the flow, right? But regardless, at this point, I wanted Katie not to be around that. So again, I was anti-white leftist, and I'll just give like some examples of that. I remember one time I was driving and I passed a white guy, and I kind of ran a stop sign, and the white guy was going like, what the fuck are you doing? And I flipped him off, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, fucking white person, the white people are so rigid, whatever. I was anti-white. And I'll just like give another example. I'm trying to think like other examples. Oh yeah, like there was this homeless white woman, and she would be walking around, and she'd be like screaming, and she'd be kind of naked sometimes. And I remember I didn't feel compassion for her, because I'd be like, yeah, that's what you white people get for, all the colonization and being assholes. And I was mad at my dad and my grandpa because of who I saw as white and who I thought were, mistreating me. So I was like anti-white, and I was a communist and leftist, and I wanted race mixing. And I saw myself as Jewish, and I saw white people as a threat, So, but I was like, oh, that's the flow, being open, like it's transcending dualistic consciousness. No, apparently it was still dualistic consciousness, because I was still attached to my ego identity and still using calculative thinking, and I wasn't necessarily in the flow, but it was still ego strategies. But now I understand that, but at the time I didn't understand that. But so my point though is, Katie had the abortion, and I was upset, but then my grandpa started to talk to me. Well, first I was talking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, can I see you again? Or can we talk? And my mom was like, at first my mom, she was like, I was first upset that she had the abortion, but now you want to talk to me and your dad again, and I don't feel any, like she was like I'm so sick of you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I at first felt bad for you, but now that you want it, that you're asking to talk to and see me and your dad again, I don't, get away from me. I feel no sympathy for you. But from the very beginning, even one of the main reasons why I wanted to have the kid in the first place was so I thought that a baby would help me to get back in contact with my mom and dad. And, like I said, but my mom was still she's still stuck in the past. She still remembers the shoot away, the times of the shoot away machine, when it was a tragic time. It was a bad time. But she thinks that there was something wrong with me. She thinks that, she's not able to let go and move on. She hasn't really seen me since then. My mom and dad haven't really given me a chance. And they had contempt for me and hatred for me from that time. And yeah, it was a bad time, but people can move on. But again, my grandpa came up with those rules, like, well, no talking about the past, so I can't talk about the past. And also like, you have to learn to accept bad calls, and Ryan really wants his independence. So my mom's like, yeah, and also like, right, and you can't force things, because I tried to force things when I was trying to get him help from my shot. My dad helped me my whole life. My dad played basketball with me my whole life. He thought I was gonna play in the NBA. He did everything with me. Took me to games everywhere. Always playing rap music with me, doing everything. And I always felt like I needed him, because he would tell me if there was anything wrong with my shot. He would say like, oh, Ryan, shoot more sideways, or Ryan, your feet are too wide, and stuff like that. But when the shoot away happened, he didn't realize that it was the shoot away machine picking the ball off the rack was preventing me from shooting sideways and shooting the way he wanted me to. And then he tried to make me artificially do that. Didn't realize that the reason I shot so good was how I moved into it, and you can't do that picking the ball off a rack. So it's like it was a tragic situation. And then I felt like I needed his help. But he's like, I can't help you. You fucking suck now. But it wasn't me. It was a shoot away. And I'm like, Dad, please help me. And then, then my grandpa's like, well, comes in. He's like, well, Ryan, you can't force things. You can't force your dad to help you. You can't. Everything is fine. You have to trust the universe. Everything is fine. And my mom's like, yeah, everything is fine, Ryan. As my dad's beating me up, everything is fine. So and then like I said, I think that they have some cognitive dissonance, because they know that they beat me up. They know that the tragedies happened, and like I said, that's why I think that they wanted to believe so bad, even though there wasn't much evidence that I was schizophrenic. When I showed them the quadrant model, they jumped on the idea that I was schizophrenic, because they wanted to think to themselves, that my mom even said it. That's the reason your shot got messed up. That's the reason why in her mind, that's the reason why they beat me up, because I was schizophrenic and I was mentally ill, mentally defective, biologically defective. Therefore, it was okay to beat me up. So they jumped on that idea, even though my grandpa was telling them he's not schizophrenic. He doesn't have a mental illness. Even though doctors told them that, they refused to believe it, because I think that part of it's a cognitive dissonance. They wanted to believe that I had a mental illness because they couldn't handle the idea that maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they mistreated me. And like I said, I'm not even mad at them. It was a shoot away machine. It was a tragic situation. Now we can move on, but they're refusing to. And a part of it was my grandpa saying like, oh, well, made up in high school. Well, no talk about the past, never bring up the past. So I tried to tell them about the shoot away machine. I was never able to talk to them. This was after, I never brought it up in college at all. After college, when I tried to talk to my dad, my mom was like, he's never going to talk to you. Don't you remember how you treated him in high school? And I was like, well, Mom, now I know it's a shoot away. She's like, no, don't talk about the fucking past. Why are you talking about basketball? And I'm like, well, you're saying that you guys won't talk to me because of the past, and now you're telling me not to talk about the past. So it's like, the ironic thing is people think that I'm the one stuck in the past because I bring up the shoot away. I'm not stuck in the past. I'm bringing that up because they're stuck in the past. They're refusing to talk to me because they're still stuck in the past. They still think I'm violent. They think that I have problems. No, none of that stuff would have happened if it wasn't for the shoot away. But so anyways, Katie ended up having the abortion, and I was upset about it. But like I said, the main thing I was worried about was that Katie would, I was worried about Katie. And then Katie, but Katie and her friend Becca thought I was mentally ill because probably they told her, like, my mom, Katie thought I was mentally ill. My mom thought I was mentally ill and stuff because my mom told Katie. I was never mentally ill. It's just retarded that people would think that, and I had that put on me when there was no evidence ever I was mentally ill. I discovered the theory of everything. I was never mentally ill. But so, Katie, so Becca's like texting me. She's like, good luck in the court case because you're going to need it. And also, like, I forget, but she was like trying to insinuate that I was mentally ill. Like, don't use word salad and try to organize your thoughts and not be schizophrenic. Like, she was basically trying to insinuate that I was schizophrenic. And I'm trying to tell her, like, listen, I don't have any mental illness. And then, but at the time, my grandpa started talking to me on the phone. So I called my grandpa. My grandpa felt bad for me about the abortion. And like I said, my grandpa would only talk to me after like tragic things would happen. Like he would stop talking to me and he'd be like, I'm just going to start meditating. And I wanted to learn more. He would always leave me in the dust. I wanted to learn about the flow and he would just leave me in the dust. I wanted to learn more from him, but he would teach me a little bit and then confuse me. And then we would get in an argument about my parents and he'd be like, oh, I don't want to teach you anymore. And then I would just be confused and left in the dust. But always he would come back to teaching me when a tragedy would happen, like something bad would happen, right? Or like, I could give other cases, but like one of the other times when he started teaching me again was when, I got in an argument with some people in Escondido where I was living, and then my grandpa started teaching me again because I was like, but my point is, like, my grandpa, if anything, like, he's supposed to be a psychologist. He's supposed to make people like more sane, but the way that he operated made me insane, dude. He set up conditions that were terrible for me. With my family, oh, Ryan just wants independence, and he just, he's trying to make things happen. Don't make things happen. Just wants independence, and don't talk about the past. And he just, all of that was just stupid, terrible conditions. He didn't know about the shoot away machine. He wanted to blame me. He was like, oh, it wasn't the shoot away machine. It was because you're playing against bigger, better players. He didn't know shit. He didn't know how good of a basketball player I was. He didn't know shit. And you might say now, like, oh, I knew how good of a no, you don't, because you didn't see me. You didn't know. And I wish I had videos, but. So at that point, I had all this stuff online because I was, posting the stuff I was texting Katie because, like I said, first off, the reason why I first posted the stuff on Facebook with the Katie situation was I thought I might go to jail because of the whole Mila situation when Mila was like doing this thing to my head, like she was gonna pinch my head and she was telling me to leave. And, I didn't attack her, but I picked her up and I took her outside and stuff. And I thought that Katie was going to try to put me in jail. So because, again, like, Katie wasn't responding to my text and she was ghosting me the whole pregnancy. And it was fucked up. And again, it's like she didn't respect me. She thought I was mentally ill. She told me even, like, Ryan, I'm not going to let you see your baby unless you take medicine. And I'm like, Katie, I don't have a fucking mental illness. Like, get that through your fucking head. But, but she was treating me like that. She wasn't responding to me. She basically obviously didn't respect me. And again, like at the time my swag flow was off, things were not good. So I don't blame her. It's okay. I'm not upset with her. But that's what happened. And like she wasn't responding to my texts when, after the Mila situation. And I thought that she was going to go tell the police or tell her ex what happened and they were going to come after me or something. So I posted online what happened to kind of give my side of the story, to say how she had pushed me to the edge by her negative behavior. And then I did that with Mila. And I wanted, and also like, I didn't want to be the bad guy. I wanted to be a part of the baby's life. Mila, Katie had already said, like, you're not going to be a part of the baby's life unless you take medicine. And I wanted people to know, like, hey, I didn't just like out of nowhere attack Mila. And I didn't this stuff wasn't out of nowhere. Katie was mistreating me, and I wanted people to know about my family situation. I've been mistreated. I discovered theory of everything, but my parents didn't believe me. It all stems from the shoot away machine when they had contempt for me. After that, if the shoot away machine wouldn't have happened, none of this stuff would have happened. It's really true, and it's crazy, but but so I'm trying to tell people, like, that's why I posted this stuff on Facebook, to let people know, hey, listen, let's say I do go to jail because Katie tells on me or something. That's what I was afraid of, but apparently she didn't. tell the police or anything, or didn't tell her ex, but I was just trying to tell my side of the story and get maybe get some help, because Katie needed someone to help her. She was on bed rest, and I wanted people to know my situation. Maybe someone's going to help me. I want some help in this situation. I'm in a bad situation. Katie has thrown me to the side. She said that she needs somebody to take care of her when she's on bed rest during the pregnancy. She has a surclause. She's on bed rest. She needs someone to take care of her, and she's kicked me out. And I'm like, can somebody help? Or at least help me get back in the situation so I can help her, because otherwise I think that she's going to get an abortion. And that's what I'm afraid of. And that's what she ended up doing. But so, after the abortion, I felt bad for Katie because, first off, they were going to have the restraining order thing, because she had given me the temporary restraining order. And Becca's like, yeah, you're going to get a restraining order. And I was like, I was devastated. And I couldn't get out of bed. And I like posted like, I've lost like 10 pounds, which I did. And then Becca made like a smiley face, like she was happy about it. Like, yeah, good. You lost 10 pounds. You're a piece of shit because of how you treated Katie. And my mom, and I asked my mom, like, Mom, can I please talk to you and Dad? Can I please see you and Dad? It will help, because I hadn't seen them in forever. And that's what I wanted from the beginning. And my mom was like, after how you treated Katie, a pregnant woman, you want our help? Like, everyone's making me into the bad guy again. And like I said, that was a part of the reason why I tried to get a hold of Katie's family too. First off, so I can get some help, but they didn't respond to me. And second off, because I didn't want to be seen as a bad guy. I wanted them to know the situation, what was going on. I wasn't necessarily the bad guy, but nobody's fucking, I discovered the theory of everything. I deserve, it would have been nice if people could have just fucking listened to me, but no, everybody throws me aside because my mom and dad started the stupid shit of thinking I was mentally ill when I wasn't. I discovered the theory of everything. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology from UCSD. Obviously, I'm not mentally ill, but they don't know what they're talking about. They didn't even see me. How could they think I'm mentally ill if they hadn't seen me? They maybe seen me for like 4 times in college, maybe 4 times throughout all college, maybe 4 or 5 times, probably like 4 times, 5 times maybe throughout all of college, for like hour intervals, and after college didn't see me at all. So that was like in 2013 was when I graduated. So they hadn't seen me in 10 years. How do they how can they have any authority to say that I have a mental illness? But so anyways, I'm trying to get, at this point, Katie had the abortion, but they're like, okay, we're going to have a restraining order. But then I start writing the book called, like, I wrote it, My Child. And I was talking to my grandpa again, and my grandpa said that, he seemed like he was going to start teaching me again. And I was very happy about that. And again, it's like, it seemed like only in tragedies when my grandpa started teaching me again. So I'm like, I'm happy about that because I want to learn about the flow. I'm still confused at this point. So I'm writing my child book, and I'm writing it to my grandpa so that my grandpa would start teaching me again. So I'm trying to show him how I've really, incorporated his ideas. So I'm like, I need to take responsibility for my software. And so I'm basically, the whole book was about me blaming myself. Like, so I was like, I was trying to make things happen. And I did feel bad. I was like, I shouldn't have written online. I was trying to make things happen. And maybe I, killed the daughter because I was trying to make things happen. Katie ended up having the abortion. Now, first off, like even Katie says that she had a surclause. There wasn't much chance for the baby, especially if I wasn't going to be taking care of the baby. But, there was a lot of problems. She had to be on bed rest. There was a lot of problems. She might have ended up having an abortion anyways, even if none of that stuff happened. I don't think so, but, it could have been. She could have anyway. So, like for me to blame myself, but, that's my grandpa's thing. Like, you can't change others. All you can do is change yourself. So I was thinking like, okay, well, just take responsibility for your software and understand your software and upgrade your software. So I'm like trying to understand my software and trying to take responsibility, which is blaming yourself. But my grandpa would be like, it's not blaming yourself because there is no self. It's just, understanding your software and taking responsibility for it so you can upgrade it. So I'm trying to take responsibility for my software, which is really blaming yourself. But my grandpa would be like, it's not yourself, it's your software. So I'm trying to be like, oh yeah, I was trying to make things happen and it's kind of like, the Star Wars Padme and Darth Vader. Like, I wanted to save my baby so bad, but as Paul says, this is what Dr. Hora teaches. As Paul says, the good I would, I do not, but that which I would not, I end up doing, because I tried to save the baby, but I ended up killing the baby because I was trying to make things happen so much and I wasn't in the flow and because of my anxiety and my restricted consciousness and not being in the flow and trusting consciousness and in oneness consciousness, I made things happen and I messed things up. And, when I got mad at Mila, that was because I wasn't in the flow. But again, if my parents would just talk to me, if I had some support, none of that would have happened. I think a part of the reason I got so mad at Mila is because she's telling me leave, and she's mirroring Katie, who wants me to leave. And in my mind, I'm like, this is what my parents have done to me. They've thrown me to the side. They've kicked me out, and it's pissing me off. And if my parents were, even the argument that I got in with Katie when, my grandpa would be like, well, don't blame. But that's why but even the argument that I got in with Katie, that one time when I was like, hey, who are you texting and stuff? I was upset because earlier that day I was trying to text my mom. My mom wouldn't respond to me. She wouldn't do that for weeks. I would be texting her. She wouldn't respond to me. And it's taken a detrimental toll on me mentally and everything, being cast to the side and abandoned by my family and thrown to the side. And it's fucked me up, and I'm not trying to, but my grandpa would be like, well, you can't change that. All you can do is upgrade your software and don't make excuses. But the thing is, it's like, no, if my family would have been involved, if my family would have not been acting like they are, it would have helped. But my grandpa would even admit, well, yes, your dad's being stubborn and he's expressing dualistic software and immature software, and same thing with your mom, and they should see you and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, my grandpa, I don't think that he really believes that, because I think I'm going to get to that more. But basically, I do think my grandpa screwed things up a lot with all of his bullshit stuff. But my grandpa would be like, well, I didn't mess up your mom and dad. I just cast pearls of swine and they misinterpreted it. And I answered questions before they asked. And like I said, I'm like, well, why don't you tell my mom and dad that they're acting stubborn and that they should talk to me? And he'd be like, well, because they haven't asked the question. So he fucked it up by giving answers before they're asked, and now he won't try to fix it. But basically, my point is, yes. And in that book, I was like trying to blame myself, take responsibility. Like, yes, I was, and then there's probably some accuracy to it. Yes, I was in anxiety consciousness and I wasn't in the flow, and, gossiping about Katie online to try to get her to do things, and also doing it with her family to try to make Katie look bad and make myself look good. Yes, I was trying to make things happen, and it might have backfired a little bit, but again, it wasn't completely my fault. It was also, it might have also been partly my parents' fault for not seeing me, for, treating me the way that they've had. I've been abandoned since high school, really. And it's also my grandpa's fault for casting pearls of swine. There was a lot of variables involved with it. And it was Katie's fault for, she didn't act necessarily ideally, even though, yes, my swag flow was off. But like I said, if my mom and dad would have helped me, my swag flow wouldn't have been off. I could have got DVDs, been studying that stuff. But, I think I'm doing a little bit better now. But the fact that she wasn't responding to my text, I just want to know how the baby was doing. It was disrespectful during the whole pregnancy. And so for me to be like, it's all my fault. But my grandpa would be like, well, all you can do is take responsibility for your software and upgrade your software. You can't change other people. But again, like, I feel like his whole thing screwed up my mom and dad, because they're like, yeah, you can't change us, Ryan. You can't change us. Now, you can't force things. You can't change us. Now, we're never going to talk to you. You can't change us. We're never going to see you. You can't change us. You can't change things. You can't force things, Ryan. So my grandpa would be like, well, that's accurate. Yeah, you can't force, you can't change other people. But again, my grandpa's ideologies end up just backfiring and end up hurting me. If he's supposed to be a psychologist, he's supposed to help situations, make more harmonious situations. But the way he did it fucked things up worse, because he just confused me. He confused my family. Like I said, I feel like he made my family into Nazis pretty much. And like in a really negative way, like worse than Nazis, dude. It's just like, it's just bad, dude. And it's just sad. It's sad and bad, but I'll get more into it in the next talk.